Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Greg Young, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from Immuron Limited. Please note you can submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view the company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Steve Littimore, Chief Executive Officer of Immuron Limited, which trades on the NASDAQ under the symbol IMRN and on the ASX under the symbol IMC. Welcome, Steve.
Yes, thank you, Greg, and good morning, everybody. I'm calling in from Australia, and good afternoon to those that are in the US market. I'll just quickly skip through the safe harbour statement. This presentation does have some FY25 results. Our financial year runs from 1st of July through to 30th of June. So we just completed FY24 in June, and a bit over a quarter of the way through FY25. Just quickly, we are based in Melbourne, Australia, a small biotech company focused on developing oral products for gut-mediated diseases, and we also have a product on the market, or two actually, one in Australia only, Protectin, but Travelan is marketed for prevention of travelers' diarrhea in Australia, US, and Canada. So we're somewhat unique in that regard in having not only a development pipeline that's quite advanced. Our most advanced asset, Travelan, is recently completed phase 2 in March of this year. We have another IMM529, which I'll talk a bit more about today, that we had successful feedback from the FDA on a pre-IND filing earlier this year. So why should you be interested in Immuron? So I think you should consider investing in us, either on the NASDAQ market or the ASX market. You can have a look on the right there, the financial snapshot. We have a strong balance sheet. So as of end of June, we had more than $11 million Australian in cash. We haven't raised cash since July 2020. So that gives us a pretty low enterprise value for all of the value that we bring with our pipeline and commercial assets. And the reason that we haven't been raising money, unlike many small biotech companies, is most of our R&D is funded by the US Department of Defense. So they are very interested in our technology platform. As you would imagine, Army and Navy both travel to parts of the world where pathogens, those that cause travelers' diarrhea, are a problem. And in every war that they've fought in, diarrhea, unfortunately, is one of those debilitating things that stops them being effective warfighters. And for that reason, the Army and the Navy have been collaborating with us for many years now, all the way from preclinical development in the lab, where they've contributed in some respects to developing new vaccines, and also through animal studies. We've done those in their Thailand research facilities, and most recently phase 2 studies and challenge studies done in Baltimore in the US. So quickly on the clinical program. So Travelan, the active ingredient, IMM124E, we had top-line results read out for that phase 2 study back in March 7th, and the international conference paper that Immuron, who was the CRO that conducted the study, there's a link in this slide that you can click on to read more about that. Another part of the US Department of Defense, the Uniformed Services University, is taking Travelan, that product that we're currently selling in the US market over the counter, in a very large study involving 866 people, and these are mostly US, but also some UK, active military personnel traveling on deployment to high-risk regions. And this is a phase 4 trial because it's a marketed product, but it's phase 3 type trial design, trying to show whether Travelan is in that real-world setting for the military, able to prevent them from getting travelers' diarrhea. So it's a placebo-controlled trial, Good news is that we're 90% recruited on that trial. I think they're going to keep recruitment open till end of March next year, which means that we should be looking at top line results around the middle of next calendar year. So that's a very important time point for us there. Another validation from the US Department of Defense, they were recently awarded a new grant, so some US $2.3 million to continue further development of products to enhance Travelan. So the Army and the Navy are going to be collaborating together to develop new vaccines for Shigella, for Campylobacter, and also for other ETEC, so that's enterotoxigenic E. coli species. And on that IMM 529, I mentioned we had a successful pre-IND meeting. We're currently working on preparing an IND, so that's an investigational new drug application. We plan to file that in the first half of next calendar year with a view to getting into phase 2 trials. And going back to Travelan, we're completing the clinical study report at the moment. So plan is to submit that to the FDA before the end of this calendar year. We'll have an end of phase 2 meeting and perhaps one other meeting with a view to finalising a clinical trial protocol for starting phase 3 in the second half of next calendar year. So there's a rich pipeline of clinical activities coming up in the next year. Now, coming back to Travelan, I mentioned that we have commercialized this, and one of the good things about that, because it uses our platform technology. If you're curious as to whether our platform technology works, you can take the opportunity of buying this product and trying it for yourself. And I encourage you to do that, because there are no products available, no FDA products available that prevent travelers' diarrhea. So rather than, it's $1 billion market, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. At the moment, people do take with them products that can assist them after they get travelers' diarrhea, but wouldn't you prefer the option of not getting it in the first place? And that's what Travelan offers you. So go to travelan.com, you can buy online, or you can buy from Amazon, you can buy from walmart.com, you can buy from Passport Health travel clinics. Most of our sales at the moment are in Australia, and during COVID, clearly with the travel medicine, our sales were very low, but we've been growing strongly each year since people started traveling again. And the most recent financial year, we grew 172% to $4.9 million, a record Travelan sales. And in the most recent quarter, we've continued that growth up 13% on the prior quarter. And in the month of October, we had a record month of 1.49 million Australian dollars. So sales are going very strongly in all markets. So Australia is the largest market, but the biggest growth is coming from the North American markets. That's US and Canada. So coming back to that $1 billion market opportunity. So products that are used for treating travelers' diarrhea are Imodium, so that's the generic drug name loperamide. You might take oral rehydration salts. You may take other things too for pain and gas and what have you. And if you add all of these up, that's more than $1 billion in sales potential. For Travelan, you can take that. It's sold, the pack shown, the Australian pack shown here in this slide. It's a pack of 30. You take it a couple of days before you travel, and with each meal while you're away, it gives you protection, one box, for approximately 7 to 10 days. The CDC, so that's the Centers for Disease Control, estimates that between 30 and 70% of people that travel to high-risk regions, and so for Americans, that would be places like Mexico or the Caribbean, and in Australia, mostly that's places like Bali or Fiji or Thailand or those sorts of places. 30 to 70% of the time you can expect to get travelers' diarrhea. So it's a real issue, and you do have the opportunity to avoid it by buying our product. Now, our technology platform is somewhat unique in that we develop proprietary vaccines. So for Travelan, that's vaccines covering 13 different strains of E-tech that's in enterotoxigenic E. coli, which are known to cause anywhere from 50 to 80% of travelers' diarrhea. And we do know that in studies with the US Department of Defense that it's not effective only against E-tech. It has broad spectrum activity against up to 180 different pathogens, including other things like Vibrio cholera, Salmonella, etc. And so how does it work? Essentially, the headline as it reads there, it binds and neutralizes to prevent. So it's not an antibiotic, so there's no issue with antimicrobial resistance. The product itself does not enter the bloodstream. It acts locally within the gut, and it essentially stops the pathogen from attaching to the gut wall, and the product itself neutralizes it, and it just clears it from the system. And so some questions I do get, because it's based on bovine colostrum. So we give that vaccine to a dairy cow prior to giving birth to a calf. And cows are somewhat unique in that they're born without immunity, and immunity is passed from the mother to the calf through that first milk that they get, called colostrum. So in reaction to the vaccine, they develop polyclonal antibodies, which are expressed in the colostrum. We collect that colostrum, and we remove the lactose, we remove the fat and the water, and we end up with a spray-dried or freeze-dried powder that we compress into a tablet. And so the big part of the product differentiation is that we get all the benefits of colostrum, and that is good in of itself. But on top of that, we have anti-E. coli antibodies, which what gives you that bind and neutralize to prevent travelers' diarrhea. So we do have a unique product differentiation. Coming back to sales, and I like this graph because you can see that got the green there, which Australia, green and gold, blue for the US, and red for Canada. Each of the markets is growing quite strongly. Most recent quarter up 13%, and in the US, as I mentioned before, and Canada, that North American growth was up 48% on the prior quarter. That's on the back of our strongest monthly sales at Amazon.com ever in September. And in Canada, we now have distribution in some 10 pharmacy and grocery retailers. In Australia alone, we mostly got that through one of the leading pharmacy banner groups, and we've recently entered into another 9 pharmacy banner groups with prime listings, which gets us into all of their stores other than the individual ones we were previously selling in. So we do expect to continue strong sales growth for Travelan going forward. Here's those numbers up on the screen. You can see the product is sold in different packs around the world. So on the left, you have Travelan, how it's sold in Australia. You need prevention, not relief. And similar wording on the Travelan pack on the right for Canada, but in both English and in French. In the middle there, you have the US pack, which is a little bit different in that, unlike Australia and Canada, which allow health claims, so prevention and relief of travellers' diarrhea, on label, on pack, in the information leaflet, the US does not allow that for a dietary supplement. So we have limited claims that we can make in the US. And that's why we're, together with the US Department of Defense, we're doing these clinical trials. And we've been through all the preclinical studies. We've recently completed phase 2. And as I mentioned, next year we're planning on doing phase 3 studies. Once we go through that process, our view is to have Travelan approved as a biologics license application. It's a BLA. As a drug, prescription drug, by the US FDA. And what that will do for us is it'll open up a large part of the market that we're not currently in. So we do know that people that travel to these high-risk regions, 50% of them seek advice from a healthcare practitioner, a physician, or perhaps a pharmacist. And at present, because of the lack of label claims in the US market, those healthcare practitioners are unlikely recommending Travelan. And so that locks us out of half of that market. And in the other half of the market, there's about 20% of people that will actively seek to find a product to assist them in avoiding or preventing travelers' diarrhea, and that's our target market. The other 30 run the gauntlet. They'll go on holiday and see what happens. So getting the drug approved opens up a big opportunity for us, especially in the US market where we don't have those label claims. You can see here in Australia, in Canada, and the US that this slide's much busier than it was if I presented it 6 months ago. We have many more retail outlets that the product's available at, and we continue to grow those distribution outlets as sales continue to grow. And how do we promote the product? So in Australia and Canada, clearly we have major retailers, and we do, as you would imagine, in-store positioning and promotion. We do retailer catalogs, and we do a lot of training of pharmacy assistants and the pharmacist, and we get a lot of in-store promotion of the product. In the US, where we don't sell in retail pharmacy as yet, mostly it's through social media marketing and search engine marketing. We do some social competitions, user-generated content. We just started an influencer program, which you may see, which involves not only users, but also some healthcare practitioners. And Amazon's our number one sales venue for Travelan in the US market, and we do take advantage of Amazon's Prime sales promotions and branded ads and the like. And we're having some very good success now. That recent high sales month in September is showing that those Amazon algorithms are starting to kick in, and we're hoping for that exponential growth rate from there. Now, changing tack here, we're coming back to one of our clinical assets, the IMM529. Unlike Travelan, this won't be an over-the-counter medicine. It will be a prescription medicine after it goes through the clinical development program and FDA approval process. We're focusing here on CDI, which is Clostridioides difficile infection. And this used to be primarily a hospital-based problem, and now it's roughly 50% institutional or hospitals and aged care facilities and the like, and 50% in the community. So it's spreading, and that's because, ironically, it's both treated with and caused by antibiotics. And recall that our product is not an antibiotic. We've developed a product here that has multiple vaccines targeting different things. So we have what we consider the world's first triple mechanism of action. So we're targeting not only toxin B, which is there are many toxins in C. difficile, but toxin B is the one that causes C. difficile. And C. difficile is also a unique pathogen in that it has it's spore forming and it has vegetative cells. And so in order to prevent it from causing C. difficile infection and having recurrence, we're targeting not only toxin B, but also those spores and vegetative cells. And that successful pre-IND filing, we applied to have our product used together with standard of care, which is an antibiotic. And our plan is to move into phase 2 in the second half of next calendar year to show in a placebo-controlled trial whether we can prevent primary disease and also prevent recurrence. So we do know at the moment for C. diff that the recurrence rate is very high. So people would get treated with, let's say, vancomycin first, and then they would fail. More than 20% of people would fail and have to come back and be retreated, and they may be treated with phytomoxicin, which is another antibiotic treatment, and then they're likely to fail again as well, and that's called second recurrence. So big problem. We hope to have a better than standard of care product, and we'll move to prove that in the second half of next calendar year in a phase 2 study. Highlighted in blue here is the efficacy results we have to date, which are in animal models. And you can see that for each of prevention of primary disease, protection of disease recurrence, so stopping it from coming back after treatment, and also treatment of primary disease, we have statistically significant results showing efficacy for our product. And we hope to be able to prove that in humans in phase 2 in the second half of next calendar year. Now, I when I came into the organisation a bit over 2 years ago, I wanted to ensure that the market opportunity for both of our assets, IMM124E, Travelan for traveller's diarrhea, and IMM529 for Clostridioides difficile infection, both current standard of care as well as other products that are in development, wanted to make sure there was a market opportunity. Both of these clinical programs were put into care and maintenance or mothballed during COVID, when it was very difficult to do studies in anything other than for SARS-CoV-2. And so coming back some 2 years later and reinitiating these clinical programs, wanted to make sure those market opportunities were there. Unfortunately, Lumanity, a leading life science consulting company in the US, and there's a link down there at the bottom if you want to learn more about them, did research for us, not only secondary research, but also talking to primary physicians involved in the field. And good for us, they came back and said that for IMM124E, and we're talking about the US market only here, they're estimating peak sales for IMM124E or Travelan of some US $102 million. And for IMM529, it's even bigger than that. Initially, it was a market opportunity of US $93 million. And that's because when we asked them to do this, we were targeting second recurrence. So this is after people have failed twice on treatment. With this new protocol that we've discussed with the FDA and pre-IND, we're now focusing on being used earlier together with standard of care, and that increased the market opportunity in the US to a peak of some US $400 million. And so great opportunity for us in that product. Really looking forward to getting started with that in the second half of next calendar year. Now, just quickly in closing here, summarize the upcoming milestones. So on the commercial front, revenue, we have continued quarter-on-quarter growth from strong growth drivers. That's getting further distribution in both pharmacy banner groups in Australia and retail groups in Canada, and to continue that growth in the US, especially on the back of that record month on Amazon.com in the US market. And we saw that in October. So we had that record sales month of $1.49 million in the month of October alone. Some of that's a buy-in, for wholesalers and people stocking up because of the new pharmacy banner groups that we got in both Australia and Canada. But compare that number, 1.49 million, to what we did in the full year for last year of 4.9. You can see that there's strong growth potential there. And on the clinical front, the two assets that we have there, so IMM124E or Travelan for traveller's diarrhea, we're expecting to complete 100% recruitment in March next year of that large phase 4 study in the US and UK military personnel. We expect top-line data from that same study in the middle of next calendar year. And following from the phase 2 study that we did on IMM124E, that clinical study report will be submitted to the FDA before the end of this calendar year, with a view to an end of phase 2 meeting in the first half of next calendar year. And we're really looking forward to getting started in phase 3 in the second half of next calendar year. IMM529 for Clostridioides difficile infection, C. diff or CDI for short, the FDA IND submission in the first half of next calendar year, followed by initiation of phase 2 in the second half of next calendar year. So a lot of good things coming up. And I might just pause there and allow people the opportunity to ask any questions they may have. Okay, first one here. How does the revenue potential for Travelan change with FDA approval? I touched briefly on that, and that's even in Australia and Canada, where we do have label claims, there's a big difference between having a label claim for an over-the-counter medicine, which is viewed as a dietary supplement, to having an FDA-approved prescription drug. And so even in Australia, where pharmacists are recommending it, but perhaps less physicians, and so we will get physician prescriptions for a product. What we'd envisage is that when someone goes and consults with the CDC Yellow Book, we'd ideally see the CDC Yellow Book get updated in its recommendations for travellers' diarrhea. At the moment, it just says, drink clean water and be careful what you eat, wash your hands and those sorts of things, as there is no drug approved for prevention of travellers' diarrhea. With a successful FDA approval for prevention of travellers' diarrhea, we would imagine that we will be in those CDC Yellow Book guidelines, and so that's what all healthcare practitioners reference when they're looking at what people should do. So when you go to the CDC Yellow Book, or the doctor does, when you go in and ask, what should I have because I'm going to Mexico or I'm going to Bali, Travelan should pop up as saying, you should take the opportunity to have Travelan. It will give you the opportunity to avoid that 30 to 70% chance of getting travellers' diarrhea. So we do expect that sales will increase significantly. And you saw that in the Lumanity market research. So in the US alone, a US $102 million market opportunity. What's this next question here? Immuron is the new products in the market. Is it available in South Africa? I'm not sure which new product you're referring to, but Travelan is in the market, and it's sold in US, it's sold in Canada, and it's sold in Australia. It's not yet available in retail in South Africa, although you may be able to buy it online. So it's available for sale on Amazon, and I do know that Amazon does allow shipments to many countries. I'm not sure whether South Africa is one of them, but possibly is the case. Can you discuss how you are building sales channels and brand recognition for Travelan? Is it over the counter? Yes, so I tried to do a little bit of that in the slide deck, and maybe I can go back and find that slide. Let's see here. I'll bring that one up. Here we go. So we in Australia and Canada do a lot of education of pharmacists and pharmacy assistants so that they can recommend the product in store. So because it is over the counter, people come into the store and they ask for assistance, saying, I'm traveling here or there and I'm concerned about travellers' diarrhea, what should I consider? We train them so they can offer Travelan, and we make sure that the product's positioned eye level in a key place. And some of the larger stores would be both in the gut health section and the travel section. We also do retailer catalogs, which are quite popular in both the in the Australian and Canadian markets that make increased brand awareness. We do other things, not on this slide deck, but so in Australia, for example, the number one airline that takes people to Bali is Jetstar, and so we've entered into an arrangement with Jetstar when they book their ticket online for Bali, and they get their electronic ticket, that we have a Travelan advertisement in their electronic ticket. So they're going to Bali, and first thing they see is Travelan, and they think, oh, maybe I should buy some of that. So we do a lot of things like that. But in terms of broader awareness in the US market, it's harder because we don't have those on-label claims, and we're not in retail pharmacy yet. We will consider doing that after we build our brand presence, and we're doing that through search engine marketing, social media marketing, social competitions, user-generated content, influencer programs, just starting up new healthcare practitioner user-generated activity, and of course Amazon being our number one sales channel in the US, prime promotions and sponsored brand ads and the like. Another question here: how does Travelan improve upon RX already in the market, such as Imodium? That is a good question, and maybe I didn't explain it quite clearly enough. Let me go back to that slide. How do I do that? Not sure. Anyway, Imodium. So that's loperamide is the chemical or generic drug name. It's sold in other brand names, like in Australia, it's sold as GastroStop, which is the number one loperamide product on the market. These are products that you use after you get traveler's diarrhea. So Imodium essentially just stops bowel movement, so it stops diarrhea from happening. It doesn't solve any of the other, pain or gas or what have you, and it doesn't stop. In fact, it stops you from getting better because it's locking that bad pathogen, so ETEC or enterotoxigenic E. coli inside you, and essentially when you take Imodium, you stop those bowel movements, but you still need to go to the doctor. They'll take a stool sample, they'll check what the pathogen is, and then they'll prescribe you an antibiotic to treat it. Travelan is completely different than that. This is something that you take 2 days prior to travel, and together with each meal, it stops you from getting it in the first place. So there should be no need to take products like Imodium or oral rehydration salts. Okay, I think... another question's just popped through. What would success in the USU trial do for IMU? Yeah, it's not IMU. That's another Australian company. We're IMC in Australia on the ASX, or IMRN on NASDAQ. That's a very good question. The USU trial is very important because the FDA approval process, we need to complete phase 3. As I mentioned before, we're looking at starting that in the second half of next calendar year. Though 2 phase 3 studies will be required, and each one of them, we hope to run them in parallel, will take approximately 2 years, and there'll be a minimum of 12 months FDA review and approval process. So it's quite a number of years away from getting FDA approval and having Travelan on the market as a prescription or RX medicine. But the USU trial is, as I mentioned before, a very large trial, 866 subjects in a placebo-controlled trial in a field study in a real-world setting in active US and UK military personnel. This is a phase 3 type trial design, and it's of sufficient credibility that we are hoping that with positive results that we'll get even ahead of FDA approval in that CDC Yellow Book, or failing that in the International Society of Travel Medicine guidelines for travelers' diarrhea. And if we can do that, both of those sources, the CDC Yellow Book and the International Society of Travel Medicine guidelines, are consulted by healthcare practitioners. So even ahead of FDA approval, that 50% of the market that we're currently locked out from at the moment would open up to us. So that USU trial is very important for us, and that should see us accelerate from the relatively low sales that we have now in the US market in particular, but also Australia and Canada, towards that much larger number that was shown in that Lumanity slide. US market alone, some US $102 million market potential. So it would move us towards that target. Okay, I think I'm just running out of time now, and might just wrap it up. I am available. Let me just click back on this slide here. So this is my direct email contact information, as well as my mobile phone number. Do feel free to reach out to me, and there is the opportunity to book a meeting on the Calendly with me. I have some already scheduled for after this call. Looking forward to doing those, and also some next week. So thanks for your time, everybody, and